Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate Rural Talk Radio, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. Folks, I have a wonderful guest with me today. My guest, Sande Hart, she was back, back in January of this year about her book, The Liminal Odyssey, The Alchemical Power of the Space in Between, which is an awesome book. That was a wonderful interview. You could go look on wherever you get your podcast to hear that interview. And Sande Hart is a writer. She's an author. She's an award-winning leader in the fields of women's empowerment and interfaith community building. Sande founded the Women's International Grassroots organization, the spiritual and, I can't read my own handwriting. Is it religion or religious, Sande? Sorry.
Spiritual and Religious Alliance for, it's a mouthful. You can say Sarah, the mother of all nations.
Sarah. Yes, known as Sarah. See, folks, you know I'm not perfect, right? Can't read my own handwriting. I don't have a computer to print and a printer to print out the information, so I got to rely on my awful handwriting. But thank you for coming back, Sande Hart. Welcome back to Chatting with Betsy.
Oh, Betsy, thank you so much. And let me just say, you are perfectly imperfect, like we all are. So thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. What a timely factor. I mean, I know you created Sarah after 9/11, but, you know, we need your organization, I think now more than ever, with so much hatred and bigotry going on. But I'd like for you to discuss how you started Sarah and why, and we could go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. So the morning of 9/11, when there was it was really the impetus of another wave of fear and hatred and intolerance and all the things that really divide us in our communities and in our world, that was a really pivotal time in my life and as well as this generation's. And so I woke up that morning with my eyes were still closed, and I'm listening to the news. And before I can make sense of what I just heard, I heard, gather women. And I'm thinking, okay, yes, but where do I get these women, and what am I supposed to do once I get them? And, oh, by the way, what do I do with my kids today? And what's going on in the hearts of Muslim women? And everything was just stirring and tumbling and tingling up inside of me. But this concept of gathering women was my inspirational pull towards what ultimately would become this organization. I was really interested in knowing Muslim women at first. Being Jewish, I didn't know an awful lot of my interfaithful community, not by design, but where I grew up just wasn't designed for multiculturalism and interfaith, and even a socioeconomic divides. In Orange County, California, it's pretty beige. Everything's manicured, and the lines of distinction are very clear, but only if you drive to that side of town. So that I just wasn't raised in the environment where we could just cross paths, and it was an easy, natural, thing to have friends of different cultures and religions, although I've always been fascinated by them. But this was my calling, apparently, to gather women of diverse faith traditions to see, as mothers of our community, what are we going to do now? And there was no question in my mind that this was the responsibility of women to take the helm of our family, of our community, and of our world in a way we have not successfully done before. I will say, and there's so many beautiful stories, and there's so much more to the originating story. But one thing I will share is that a few years into this, I received an email from the associate director of the Pluralism Project out of Harvard University, to come and help them with this report that they were doing that was entitled, or exploring, that was entitled The Women's Interfaith Movement Post 9/11 Initiative. Now, up to this point, this was 2005-ish, maybe a little earlier than that, the Internet wasn't anywhere near what it is today. There was nothing to be found on women's interfaith. We just felt like, oh, this is such a new and unique idea, and it really was. But there, when I went to that symposium, I met two other organizations around this country that looked like us, and we were it. We were it. And that because of there were more, Harvard would have found them. And so, but the outcome of that report was that unlike the feminist movement that has come before us, the feminist movements that have come before us, where it's fierce enoughness, pounding the pavement, pumping our fists, demanding, getting our demands met to some degree, it was all matching that masculine energy of demands, which was necessary. But what this was showing, what this report demonstrated, was that we were conforming to our higher and our deeper value systems as women. This is our biological innate imperative as women to leap, to serve to the community and our families. So that's really kind of the background of how Sarah started, and a little explanation of what it was I was responding to that I had no clue of. I just didn't have a choice.
That's very interesting, Sande. And it's really important, for people to understand that people grow up in neighborhoods that are maybe of their same ethnic background, and especially way back, like when you were growing up. I know when I was growing up, neighborhoods were segregated. I'm also, Jewish, but I didn't live in a Jewish neighborhood. But I lived in, it was predominantly white. It was white. And the black community was on the other side of town. And that's just the way it was in the 60s and 70s. And, if people would realize that we're more alike than we are different, and just put aside differences, I think we could get along better as human beings to each other.
What I discovered, yes, and what I have discovered in addition to that, because one of the things that we did an awful lot of, so there's like 22 years of research here from just experiencing this on the community, that we do better together when we honor our differences. Putting them aside doesn't help us understand them. It's accepting them, and that's great, but when we can learn from them, there's so much to be learned from when we understand them, that it deepens our own roots of our own faith traditions. For me to know what Muslims think about a particular solution to something, or the reason why women cover, or one of the reasons, we all have different, there are a number of interpretations, the reasons, and I learned more about my own Jewish tradition that I never knew, because I never really thought about it, but now I'm like, hey, wait, what do I have to know about that in my tradition? So I'd go to my rabbi, I'd look it up, I'd ask around, and I learned things about my own faith that I didn't know. So, yeah, there's an awful lot of celebrating and honoring. Celebrating our the things that we're unified in, and understanding and honoring our differences.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. What I mean by putting aside the differences is, okay, if someone is Muslim or Hindu, like they do different things, and that's okay. But yes, let's learn about why they do what they do and why we do what we do, and and honor and respect each other. I just think that humanity is missing these days, big time.
Yeah, it's so fun to be a part of these living room dialogues or these community dialogues where my favorite question to ask to get started, a little bit of an icebreaker, is what is the biggest misconception of your faith? In other words, what do you know to be the biggest misconception? So you are going to bring up the biggest misconception, and it's usually an understanding I was caring, about different things, about, there are certain stereotypes about certain peoples, and they do things for certain reasons. So let them point that out and tell me how it's different or why it's that way. I find it. I'm just a student in that way. I think it's
that is a good question. Yeah, that is a good question because there are misconceptions. I know way back, like my dad, he used to say that people thought Jews killed babies during Passover, which is not true, but that was a common misconception back then, perception way back when. So what does your group, your organization do for women, and how can women get involved?
Well, it's interesting because if you had asked me this 5 or 6 years ago, it would have been, the same thing we've done for 15 or 16 years, or 17 years. We meet in one another's homes, we talk, we create circle, we do a variety of different things. We respond spontaneously to the needs of the community. We work with local organizations that are, that have particular initiatives, and we support them. We have been invited onto panel discussions at universities and colleges, as well as different organizations that are looking to understand who we are, or what it means. Or I'm sorry, not who we are, but what the lens of interfaith cooperation through women's perspectives. What does dignity mean from a woman's perspective? So we've done all of these things, and we continue to do them, but now everything is online because COVID changed everything for us.
Right.
We lost a lot of our on the ground. We were largely very local. Largely in Orange County, Southern California and Orange County particularly. And then when COVID happened, we went online, and we almost overnight just exploded into, global. Well, we always brought global down to local, and local through the lens of global when we were working locally. But now we're global doing global. But we always make sure that it's scalable to a local level because that's where real change happens. So the things that we have done, we just came off a series called the General Congress of Women. That was a 2-year series, and now it's an iteration of that called Sacred Circle for the Soul, where all women are invited online once a month to discuss a particular different topic. So what we did was back 2 years ago, because this is all part of the same stream of effort that we've done, when it was the 150th anniversary of the Mother's Day Proclamation and the suffragist movement, we took that Mother's Day Proclamation, which was written by Julia Ward Howe, and that last paragraph says, where this was a call to action after the Civil War with women who have had enough. They were done sending their sons off into war. They were done receiving their sons and their husbands either deceased or reeking of carnage, which is the language that's used. There are these, I think, 4 paragraphs in the Mother's Day Proclamation. But the last one says, we hereby call for a General Congress of Women of all nationalities to convene to address the great and urgent needs of peace. And when I read that, I'm like, well, there it is. We are the mother of all nations, Sarah, and we have the capacity now and the privilege with our network, because we've gone online and we've grown this really large network, to bring these areas that need healing and into conversation. So then we looked at the I know there's so much here, the United Nations 12 critical areas of concern. These are areas of concern written by UN women that address issues that disproportionately impact women, which is everything on the planet, but they summed it up in these 12 particular issues. Healthcare, the environment, women in the media, women in economics, women in peace and power, women and go on and on for 12. Oh, the girl child, girls' education. It just goes on for 12 topics. So we broke down those 12 topics. We identified thought leaders and experts in their field and brought an Indigenous elder onto each call to speak to our audience from their perspective on that particular topic. Jean Shinoda Bolin, Dr. Rianne Eisler, these are some names that are kind of famous out there in the world if you study any of this. Dr. Rianne Eisler wrote The Chalice and the Blade, and she is a very prolific writer on the women's women's movement, feminist movement, and her book, The Chalice and the Blade, revolutionized the women's movement right after the Betty Friedan's book. Completely flying out of my head right now. But anyway.
It's okay.
At any rate, so we've had these really well-known, really, amazing women to come and speak with an Indigenous elder, which is the only right way to open an event, is some sort of a blessing from somebody of Indigenous nature where you're at. And that's what we did. We brought these Indigenous elders from all over the world, and then to share their perspective. So we kind of balanced it in that energy. So every one of those 12 webinars, programs, you can find on our website. The next year we said, okay, now let's take it to us. Now let's have the same conversations in the same order, a month for 12 months. But now let's hear from us, you women, us women. What do we think about women in education? We're experts in our own life. What's our perspective? Because this really matters. We've heard what the experts say. How does this affect us in our lives? And where's our wisdom? What's our perspective? And so we're in our second year of that. And we just changed it the name to the Sacred Circle from the Soul, because we changed it up a little bit, but it's basically all we're in the third year of that first year initiative. So that's where we are right now. That was just such a Herculean task that we have taken on, and now we're doing this. And now we're also sponsoring the Parliament of the World's Religions Women's Village, and that's a whole nother call, Betsy. But there's a lot. We're doing a lot.
You're a busy lady.
Our website. Yeah.
You are. You are busy. I think it's wonderful because anyone now, anywhere in the world, can get in touch with and see what Sarah is about. Where before you were local, in Orange County, and because of the pandemic, now you're known worldwide. Absolutely. And you're welcome. Women are welcome to come to the call. Even if you're not comfortable and you just want to listen, you can remain muted and not turn your camera on. It's just such a warm, lovely gathering where all voices who want to be heard are heard. And that's really the most important thing. It's time that we remember who we are.
It's time we remember our power. It's time we remember we don't need permission to share our wisdom. This is, this is where you come
True.
to be in unconditional sisterhood.
That I love that, Sandy, because we in this society kind of shove away older people, and I'm one of those older people now. But older people, we have wisdom, and that we could share, and to mentor younger women, and to help them, and to support each other. I've really seen in the workplace and the places where I've worked at that women don't support each other. They'd sooner, backstab and tear each other apart. And we're all there to work. We all need the money, so why can't we just work together? Why can't I support you as a new person if you're coming in, teach you the ropes so you could be successful at your job? And if everyone's successful, then the place is successful. I just think it's, sisterhood and being supportive and learning from each other it's a beautiful situation.
That's what you said is such an understatement, and it's so important to underscore. It's so important to underscore that this is a condition of patriarchy, the system of domination that has set us up to not trust one another. And yet, not only do we have wisdom, it's so much more than that. We have responsibility to share our wisdom. We have the utmost. It's absolutely a requirement that we all recognize. I'm so firm on this, that we all have lived a life. That's why we bring a lot of Indigenous elders and older women into our calls for their wisdom, because there's nothing that beats lived experience. Nobody is really an expert. I'll tell you something. I get more out of, someone who doesn't have any particular degree or level of expertise in something over someone who is very academic in that world, because the lived experience and your perspective is so unique. There's no two examples. And when you're listening to someone who has, even me, who has this lived experience, don't take my word for it. Make your own decision. Question your own curiosity about things. I'll respect that feeling in your gut when something doesn't feel right about what you hear. Know that we really are wiser beyond measure. And this is where it's really important to look at our crone wisdom. We have to start changing the meaning of that word crone from a crooked-nosed old lady that's hunched over with crooked fingers, No, right. No. That was devised to put us in our place, to keep us in place. A crone it means wicked, wise, Wicca, where the word witch comes from. Wicca is wise. We are the wise women. At one time, we were the wise women of the community until, patriarchy really got its grip. So, it makes me sad when women don't realize their power and their voice matters.
Oh, that is true. I feel as a veteran caregiver, Sandy, I feel that it's my responsibility to help new caregivers, navigate caregiving waters and to share with people my experiences, not because I know more than they do, because I want them to know from my mistakes so they don't make the same ones. And, we can learn so much from each other. I had to share the story because this just shows how different cultures respect their elders. I was working at a preschool, and my coworker, she was from India, and she said to me, Betsy, my mom is not around for my birthday. you're like a mom to me. I see you as a mom. Can I get a blessing from you? And she bent down to my shoes and like waved her hand. She said, you're a wise woman, Betsy. I want your wisdom. I was so honored. Like I was, she was a little older than my son, so I was really honored that she thought of me in that way. And how beautiful, is that for women to get wisdom from older women. And I feel like, especially I'll just give an example of the caregiving world. I would rather take advice from someone who lived it than from someone who just has the academic book knowledge, because there's such a difference with someone who's lived it.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And people, yes. I've even interviewed professional caregivers who have said to me, you know what, when I became a caregiver, then I really understood. And now they're different in their professional way of speaking and doing things because they lived being a caregiver, and they say things in a whole different light. So experience is really a teacher. That's for sure. Excuse me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad, Betsy, that you mentioned the Liminal Odyssey, because in that book there's a chapter on fear, and you've mentioned something that's really, really a game changer, I think, in our world, and that is that women don't see one another as allies, but that we don't get along and there's backstabbing or what have you. There's not trust and things like that, and fear is there to protect us, but it's also something to alert us. So I think it's time that we start paying attention to those that we don't trust, and start breaking down what is it about that person that I don't, why don't I trust them, or why do I feel competitive with them? And odds are it'll come back to our own lack of confidence in ourselves. We feel like we have to do that to get ahead or whatever.
Yes, I think people, especially in a workplace, or someone who's insecure might feel threatened by someone who maybe knows a little more than they do. They might, have a narcissistic personality too, and they have to be the center of attention. I worked in a preschool, and I always showed the new people, the ropes. Nobody showed me. Nobody told me what to do. And I think it's just better if you tell someone what to do, show them so that they know. Because then we hear people complain, well, they don't know to do this. They don't know to do that. Well, did you tell them? Did you show them? But even, Sandy, I had, around holiday time, oh, my goodness, the competition of some people. What did you get from this parent? What did you get? Oh, how come you got more than me? And, I mean, just ridiculous. It's so pathetic. And, and I've had where this one employee, coworker, I had received more than the group leader from a child's parents. She went over to the group leader and said, Betsy got more from so-and-so's parents. And so then the person's mad at me, and I said, don't be mad at me. I don't know why. Go ask them. What I really wanted to say was maybe they know I care about their child, that I genuinely care about their child. Maybe that's it. But, it's like, why are you threatened about that? See, to me, I feel so happy for someone when they get blessed. Mm-hmm. And I would say, that's great. I'm happy for you, that you got blessed with gifts. I never got jealous of who got, received what at work. It didn't bother me. I was like, you know what? You're going to be jealous of a Taco Bell gift card? Are you kidding me? I was like, like my husband was dying at the time, and you're jealous of a gift card. What I would give to have my husband to be healthy, right? I would turn in any gift that would have made my husband healthy. But really, people are insecure, in themselves, and I don't know if you could tell me if you believe this, Sandy. Is I believe in going by our gut instinct and what we feel is right for us and what doesn't. What's your perspective?
Thank you for asking. Well, first of all, our body, the nature of our body, and this is science, was set up to tell us what to do, generally speaking. I mean, we have a set of morals and a perspective on life, and we have our blueprint for living. Each one has one, and we're in total control over it. Yet our body is set up naturally as a GPS system on what's right in a lot of cases, what feels right, what decision to make. And yet, it requires a relationship with those sensations. So there's feelings, and that comes from our emotions. And then there's sensations, and that's our body. And when you get a sensation, when you think of, well, should I do this or I should do that, there are times where I'm in a conversation with somebody and we're planning an event like we're doing right now at the Parliament of World's Religions in Chicago this year. And when we are talking about this and then this idea comes and it's verbalized, I get full body chills. I'm like, oh, there it is. That's it. That's the title of what we're going to do. I don't even question it because it's perfect, because my body, all 37 trillion cells in my body just approved it, And we do have, this internal gauge system, a gut, we feel things in different parts of our body too, not just your stomach. Your heart can feel heavy. You can feel a tightness in your throat. Typically that means that you're not speaking your voice. Your voice isn't being heard, or for some reason you feel that your voice doesn't matter here, or you're not confident and in what you're about to say or have said, or saying it with integrity. Pay attention. My throat gets in knots a lot. So we all carry energy in our body in different ways. Back pain, shoulder pain, arms are other indicators. So understanding the chakra systems and where the energies of our body, but if and you don't have to take my word for it. You can look at any pro-social psychology reports. These are scientifically proven facts that when we have the when we feel compassion for another, that expands our vagal nerve, and that vagal nerve starts at the tip of your spine and goes all the way through every vital organ and all throughout your body, which when you're feeling an emotion, it triggers a sensation. So yes, your mind and your heart are only 8 inches apart, and that's, a very powerful space right there. But it's your heart that really is something to pay attention to in this whole process, because that's where a lot of us carry that pain. So yes, gut, arm, shoulders, neck, the whole body awareness is so important. It just is a practice. It's a practice. Yeah, you can just practice it.
Now, at your organization, Sarah, do you encourage women or teach women to find their voice and use their voice?
Yeah, we've had different programs. As a matter of fact, it's a byproduct of being with us. So we kind of teach each other that. You come into calls and you watch other women. You experience other women's voice. You get things. You get this wisdom coming through all the women. So we're not teachers. We're sisters. And a byproduct. Yeah, and in that way, we're teachers. In that way, we're each other's mentors. We're each other's guides. That's how I see every woman on the street. The other day, a woman walked by us. My husband and I were crossing in a crosswalk, and a woman, she wasn't really paying attention, and she brushed my shoulder, or she was about to walk right into us, and we kind of were watching her. We weren't going to let that happen, but she caught herself. She looked up, and she goes, "Oh, sorry." And I stopped her and I said, women should not apologize for the simplest of things. Find another word. My husband's going, that was a little dictatorial, it didn't sound like a dictator there. But it's like, I get frustrated by that, but I feel like it's my opportunity to tell this beautiful woman that I don't know and will never see again. No need to apologize. Apologize for something really meaningful. Say, excuse me, or or I goofed, but we apologize for the most benign movements. So we start paying attention to those. They add up. They're not just incidentals. They really do add up, and we start catching ourselves. And here's another way to notice it, and I'll stop talking. You get me really excited here, Betsy.
That's okay. I love that.
Thank you. When we write, take the word just or talk. Pay attention to using the word just, J-U-S-T. We may have talked about this on the last call because I'd love to bring this up because it's a really great way of recognizing when we are in our integrity, because that's really the ultimate bottom line here. When we're in our integrity, we're conforming to what Sarah refers to as our higher and our deeper value systems, which is, we can do that. We're an interfaith group. We hope that happens globally, no matter what group, but this is what we focus on. So you're in your integrity, and when you are paying attention to your body, when you're watching your words, and when you're focusing on what matters. Maybe a Taco Bell gift card is not the most important thing. Realign your perspective. Let's rethink this, Is that really important? And here, you can have my gift card, But
right.
Whatever. But the word just, J-U-S-T, diminishes what we're about to say. I just want to say something. No, I want to say something. Or I'm just calling. No, I'm calling. I just love you. No, I love you. Just minimum. So it's a silly, easy, and it's just the simplest way to catch how words are so powerful. We create with our words. So we watch our words, and that helps us watch our thoughts. And so that's a really easy exercise to practice, taking that word just out of your vocabulary in that way. Yeah. So
that's a good idea, because people, you're right, they might say, even like, in a work meeting, oh, I just had this little idea. Or, I just have a small suggestion. And we diminish ourselves. And you're right about the apology, because I have heard that before, and I don't remember from who, that why do women especially say, oh, I'm sorry all the time? And, like you're apologizing things, sometimes even for things that aren't your fault. And I think especially if you grow up and you are the scapegoat of your family, you tend to apologize a lot to other people, thinking, oh, it is your fault what happened, when it really isn't. I have actually discovered recently that I will no longer apologize for things that I have no control over. It is not my fault if the internet loses connection. I cannot help that. The weather is not my fault. And, it took me really into my 60s, I'm 65, to really know my power and to step into it and not be afraid. And, like not have to apologize. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't, interview you. I'm booked up. Why should I be sorry about that? Just example like that.
That's absolutely right. That word is really powerful. You can express, I'm disappointed or what have you, but it takes the onus off of you and this is all part of that patriarchy. And that patriarchy, by the way, is not gender specific, although it was, it is traced back to the male Christian population. And in fact, the Torah, is the first indicator that there was a male dominating figure before you get Zeus and all of the Greek gods. But even then there were powerful women warrior goddesses. So, but in monotheism is really where it started and really grabbed the community and really changed the world was in the Christian Crusades and and in that, it's the organic nature of the United States and how slavery was permissible, how taking land from indigenous peoples was permissible to make them savages, and then just the word civilization alone, that's a terrible word. We civilized as if they needed civilizing. So that's all part of the system of domination. But women, whom you've pointed out, because we say we backstab and that's all part of, we're all living that patriarchal, experience ourselves. So when we start changing the conversation, we start seeing one another. We start seeing our power in ourselves. Or I should say we change one another by changing ourselves and how we treat one another and trust one another and have open lines of communication and check our own integrity and along the way. We really stand a chance of a more harmonious world.
Definitely. I just learned recently because I'm a co-host on a show on the Passion World Talk Radio called Lest We Forget, and I just found out about Manifest Destiny, and we went over the Native Americans and just really history, and it's just been mind-boggling to me how much I did not know, of what happened with the Native Americans. I knew some, but of course it wasn't taught in school, especially when I went to school. But women had been suppressed in having a voice for generations. You're supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to obey your husband, and some people even believe that you stay with your husband even if he beats the living crap out of you. That you should just accept that. It's just wrong, for lack of better word, because I can't think of another word. For women to be to be subjected to that, and for people to actually say, "No, that's your job." That's what your husband wants to do, or you must have done something for him to beat you up. No, that's not the way it is.
Right, and the fact that we believe it, and then we believe it.
Yeah. Yes, and
yeah,
it's true. I interviewed someone last year. She was domestic abuse, and she went for counseling in her church, and her church pastor said, "You need to stay with him," and nobody would help her. That's terrible.
Yeah. Right. The concept that makes that possible should be considered absurd. It shouldn't even be a consideration. And yet it's been a slow drip on society, so it's going to be a hardship to turn around. There's a documentary called The Burning Times that is a really beautiful, historic lesson on how this all happened. And at some point, it's like, okay, like, there's a lot of repetition. At some point, it's like, oh, that's enough. I can't take any more. But it's a really in-depth, it's a long documentary. But even in the first half of the documentary, it makes sense. It just makes sense. And then there's another documentary called The Doctrine of Discovery, Unmasking the Domination Code. And the Doctrine of Discovery is an actual doctrine that was instituted by, I don't know which pope, but some pope in the turn of the 15th, 16th century. And that doctrine is what made it possible. That basically says that Christians have dominion over savages, and that they have the right to take land and civilize them. That doctrine of discovery still exists. And I do believe our current Pope, bless his heart, is unsealing the document. And that means disembowing what that Pope had. But even if because it still makes it, there are still some laws in place that cite that doctrine, such as Indian reservations and the atrocities that are happening to today's Native American people on reservations. So there's so much more than we could even grasp. But those are two documentaries that are really, really helpful to understand and make Sarah really relevant today, because this is where women have an opportunity to show up in our power, to show up to find our voice, to acknowledge our voice, to have our voice valued, or even just to hear our own voice and recognize, wow, we're not alone.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is so true. I used to be afraid to use my voice and to stand up and to speak up. But as I turned the tide at the age of 60, I was like, you know what? No more. Am I going to let people tell me to be quiet and squash myself? I don't want to be squashed anymore and squished down like a bug. I know who I am. I'm proud of who I am. Not perfect. I make mistakes. But my heart's mission is to use my voice, Sandy, to help other people. And that's one of the reasons of my show, Chatting with Betsy, is to help other people. And if anyone would have told me, a few years ago, I'd be talking to different people and interviewing different people, I would have said, no way. There's no way I would be talking. I'd be like, who wants to hear my voice? But I just think now, this is the voice God gave me, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it to help people. And I feel more empowered now at 65 than I ever have in my entire life.
It's beautiful to hear. That really is beautiful. Yeah, and you make it sound, and it is so achievable. I mean, I'm not. I know everyone has a story, and I know some are really heavy, and yet we have to be sure that we recognize. I'm going to say this let's see, how would I say this? I just want to make sure that we realize it's simply like turning on a light bulb, flipping the switch, and just start with those justs. There I go.
Yeah.
Start with those justs. Simply start with those justs. Simply start with watching how we apologize. Come into circle with women where that can be strengthened. It doesn't have to be Sarah. There are lots of circles of women all over the world. When you come into circle with women, you're coming and sitting in a circle where it is understood that that's the environment you're in. If you don't feel heard in the environment you're in, find another environment. that if it's important for you to be heard, and it should be, find an environment that hears you. We find ourselves putting ourselves into these places that it's like, well, go where the nurturing is. The nurturing. You sit in circle with the women. There's a certain circle protocol that's natural. One person speaks at a time. Everyone's voice is valued. Listen for understanding. You join the circle, and that makes the circle expand. You leave the circle, it contracts. Another person comes, it expands. It's not moving around chairs and creating a different square. The circle constantly moves in and out. And it's nature's way of convening. So find a circle, and you'll find your sisters.
That's beautiful, Sande. I love talking to you. How can people go and research Sarah and join your circle?
Yeah. Can
you give the website?
Sure.
And it will be in the blog post.
Oh, great. Thank you. It's Sarah for Hope, the number SARAH, the number 4hope.org, sarah4hope.org. And, oh, gosh, there's so many pages on that website. It's so funny because we started that site in 2005 or 6, and it's so full and packed. It's our archives for everything. That the idea of, like, upscaling to a fancy website, it's like there's no way we'll never get it all in there. So it's a really full, fun, creative website. There's ways of getting involved, things to look at that will suit you or won't, and then you can also contact us. I'll get your contact information if you're looking for something you don't see. And our calls are the last Saturday of every month, and they're held at 8 a.m. And I can't even think off the top of my head. I'm still floating on the ceiling from the last call. So I can't even tell you off the top of my head what the topic is. But you can also join our newsletter, and you'll get it all there. That's the best way.
Oh, that sounds awesome, Sande. Thank you very much. And how can people reach out to you? Can they do that through going on sarah4hope.org to reach out to you?
That's the best place. If you just go to contact us, I'll get it. It'll come to me.
Oh, okay. And your book, now, folks, if you think Sande sounds amazing, she is. And tell us where people can purchase your book.
Well, the book is the Liminal Odyssey. And it's at liminalodyssey.com, and if you use the promo code SISTERS, inspired by today, with the capital S, no, it's all capital, SISTERS, that's plural. There's a little discount code there, and this is for United States-based shipment, so you can go there. The Liminal Odyssey is also on Amazon, but can I ask you to look for the one with all the stars or all of the acknowledgments, because there's like an imposter out there selling my book. And so if you can just skip over that, you don't see any comments or what are they called, recommendations or whatever that's called, where they give you stars. Just look for that, because then you'll know that's actually my book. And I know it's a little problem having right now, but I might as well let you know. And that's at Liminal, Liminal. It's a big word, liminalodyssey.com, or Liminal Odyssey on Amazon, or whatever online bookseller you go to.
Wow, thank you so much, Sande Hart. That's Sande, Sande. It's with the E, folks. Hart, at Hart. And I just really enjoyed having you on and talking to you. You just inspired me. I just feel like a really good energy right now here in New Jersey. Sandy's in California, but you just feel it through the airwaves. It's hard to explain to people, the energy that you feel, and just brightened my day.
Yeah.
And I just want to, you're welcome. Thank you for coming on. And folks, all the information about, thank you. All the information about Sande Hart will be in the blog, so please read it. Jeannie White, who is the station manager, writes the blog, produces the show. So thank you, Jeannie. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who's CEO of Passion World Talk Radio, who makes this all possible. And thank you to the listeners, to the audience. Thank you for listening. Please share the show to help other people. And that's what I want to do, is to help other people, help them have a better life by providing resources that will help you or your loved one. And if you don't already subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, please subscribe. It is for free on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, and YouTube, to name a few, because then you can hear Sande Hart's interview way back in January of this year, where she talks about her book. And you don't want to miss my phenomenal guest. And I do have phenomenal guests on. I have to say so myself. And you can follow me on Facebook, Betsy, B-E-T-S-Y-E, my initial, W-U-R-Z-E-L. And if you are looking for a support group, if you are a caregiver, I have a support group, #KICK, Alzheimer's Ask Movement, and it is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, this month of June. So take care of your brain, folks, and if you have any memory concerns at all, please consult your primary care physician. Take care of you. Take care of your brain. And as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind, shine your light bright, because if we all did that, it would be a much more kinder, brighter world, and that's what we need. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Till we chat again, be kind and shine bright. Bye-bye now.